Hello everyone, this is my next class. Okay, today in this class, I'm gonna teach you how to play Queen's Indian Defense. This was a game played between Vishwanathan Anand and Michael Adams in the year 2005, and it was Chorus VKNG tournament. D4, here Anand is white, he played D4, Knight F6, C4, E6, Knight F3, B6. Okay, as we already learned in the previous class that Queen's Indian, Nimjo Indian, the thing of playing on E4 and how the game continues in the battle in the center, and how black tries to occupy E4 and white will counter the center with many other variations. So let us see in the Queen's Indian. So b6, knight f3, knight f3, b6 is a Queen's Indian, whereas knight c3 and bishop b4 will be Nimjo Indian. So here Anand played g3. Here in this variation, the black will develop bishop to b7, and for this bishop, white should exchange this bishop later to have a good chance to occupy the center. So if you play e3 variation, then black can simply play bishop e7. Later he can play anything to equalize the position. So g3, bishop a6. Now if you play e3, that will be a big mistake, because the complexion of white squares around the king are very weak. So to support this, you need to play b3. B3, the idea behind b3 is to play bishop b2 even, and to play d5 at one point and activate this bishop on this long diagonal. So now, to avoid that, black played bishop b4 check. Now if you play a move like knight d2, for example, if you play a move like knight d2, knight e4 and knight c3, maybe will be a clear advantage for black. So black is forcing to play bishop b2 instead of bishop d2. So the point is, now black won't exchange bishop d2. Instead he will go back to bishop e7 and try to protect the so now white will be moved down by doing this. Now he cannot play knight c3 and leave this bishop here, or he have to play bishop c3 and like bishop d2, bishop b2 again, or knight c3, or again knight d2. So he played bishop g2 and c6, closing this by a diagonal, and want to play d5. So he played bishop c3 and d5. Now after cd5, the position will hardly become any advantage for white. So he's waiting to open this bishop and to have a good chance on c6. So he played, and also he needs to support this pawn on c4. If you play knight d2 and support this pawn, and there is no way that white will get advantage, and this bishop diagonal will never be opened. So he played knight e5 and knight fd7 and knight into d7 and knight into d7. So after knight d7, white played knight d2, simply supporting this pawn, castle shot, and knight f6. Now Anand chooses an interesting line where most of us will play e4 here, and even some will play rook e1 and e4. CD5, he can grab with CD5 or ED5. Even knight D5 is also good, but ED5, I prefer ED5, and later you can come with bishop C8 and bishop F5. That will be very good plan for black, like this. So here Anand played E4 and B5. Now I think white can play rook e1 and play a simple variation where this bishop on a6 will be very passive after d into b into c4. You can even still play queen a4 like most, or rook b1 taking control over the open file. This d4 and e4 pawn will be very strong, but Anand choose a interesting exchange sacrifice line where he'll get a very good advantage. ed5, and after cd5 he simply plays c5 and given an exchange sacrifice. Anand can still play rook e1 and try to protect the exchange, but c5 and b4. Okay, now bishop b4 is forced and bishop into f1. Here also I think Anand have two options like bishop into f1 or queen into f1 or knight into f1. Queen f1 doesn't really look anything good for white. So if you grab with knight into f1, like this, black cannot play a move like e5. Then later you can play bishop c3 with b4, a4, b5 will use a good healthy two connected passed pawns, and that position is very good for an exchange or even winning for white. So I think Anand played bishop f1, which allows black to give a little counter chances with e5, and after e5 bishop c3. After d5 knight d7 loses this pawn, and black will be very good in playing that position. So after bishop c3, a5 preventing b4, and a3 knight e4, knight into e4, d into e4. Now there is no d into e5 because of bishop into c5 activates this bishop on this diagonal. So he played b4 trying to optimize the movements of this bishop. A b4, bishop b4. So in this position, if you capture e into d4, queen into d4, queen into d4, bishop into d4, there will be a two healthy passed pawns with the supports of a bishops. I think that position will be a very clear advantage for white. So after a b4, rook into a1, queen into a1, queen d5. Now black sacrificed a pawn to activate his pieces, to activate his bishop, or else if he simply capture with d into e5, there is no way that black can at least try for a draw in this position, the open board with a double bishop advantage. So he played d into e5, Anand captured the pawn, and rook a8 and queen c1, rook a2, queen e3. Now Anand simply tries to exchange the queens and go to an endgame where this rook and bishop against two pawns will be very hard to stop by the rook. So he prefers the endgame, and so he captured the queen on d4, bishop into d4, king f8 and h4. Now Anand played h4, a very interesting, a good move actually I should say. It prevents counter chances like bishop g5 and maybe bishop g5 and e3. So h4, king e8, I think it's a mistake. Now Anand plays a good move with e6. The reason why I'm saying this is good move because Anand gave the pawn back and took the pawn on g7. Now compare the pawns of black and white. Black pawns are all isolated and white pawns are connected and very strong to win a game. In this previous position, black pawns on the king side are even good before playing king e8. So he just doubled his pawns and left black without having any counter chances to win a game. So even after losing this A, B and C pawns for free, black can hardly win this game because of this pawn structure. So e6 is a good move and bishop into g7, rook c1, bishop d4, king d7, bishop e3, rook c3, bishop d4, rook c1, king g2. Now just Anand needs to open these two bishops to a good squares and then he can push these pawns of b5 c6. So king c6, bishop e3, rook c2 and bishop a6. So now the both bishops open the diagonals and these two connected pawns will be a big threat for black. So he played king c7 preventing b5 check, b5 and c6 check. So king h3. Now Anand tries to play the king to g4, f4 and want to grab all the pawns with the king, or even he can play and win all the three pawns with the king. So here he played rook c3, bishop d4, rook b4 and b5. And finally I think black can realize that he's losing this position after b6 check, king c6, and here Anand played a very good move and Adams resigned this game. Bishop b5. So after king into b5, b7 wins on spot. So this was a very good exchange sacrifice and a very good positional game played between Vishwanathan Anand and Michael Adams. I hope you enjoy the game. See you in the next class.